Hi, this is Greg Bridges, and I want to welcome you to the Music Composers Panel at Afro Comic Con Virtual 2020 event, and thank all of you for joining us. Please consider donating to the AFCC Moonshot Junior program that funds young girls of color to go through a 12-month program where they learn tech skills, innovation, product development, and entrepreneurship. Please click the donation link. Any amount will help. More information will be on the website. On this panel, wow, we've got an esteemed group of musicians. First up is Ian Chen. Ian, give folks a wave, man. Now,
Hello, everyone.
Ian's been nominated for Music of the Year at the 18th Game Audio Network Awards for his original soundtrack for the French independent game Fantastic Creatures. The soundtrack also won him Best Film, TV, Game Score at the 18th Independent Music Awards. Ian is a 2019 Golden Bell Award nominee for his work on the soundtrack for the Netflix series Green Door. And in 2018, his score for the American feature documentary This Land received nominations internationally, including Best Original Documentary Score for the Filmusity Festival in Spain, and the Crystal Pine Award, Best Original Documentary Score at the International Sound and Film Festival in Croatia. We've also got Kwame on board. Kwame, a very talented artist, songwriter, and producer who first made major impact in 1989 at the age of 16 with one of hip-hop's classic albums called The Boy Genius and timeless songs such as The Rhythm and Only You, which sold over 2 million records as an artist. Kwame also made an impact in fashion off of a polka dot craze that was his identifiable signature for a while. He's produced on multi-platinum albums by artists such as G-Unit's Lloyd Banks and Will Smith, just to name a couple. Kwame's involved with film scores as well, scoring for the films Step Up and Step Up 2, Fantastic Four, Stomp the Yard, Scream 4, and The Comebacks. He's also served as music producer, supervisor, and composer for the Lifetime film Seasons of Love in 2015. On board, we've also got D-Wig, Dwayne Wiggins, a founding member of the multi-platinum, multi-award-winning R&B group Tony. In 1995, he signed and developed the powerhouse group Destiny's Child on his recently formed label Grassroots Entertainment. Dwayne's also had influence in the early careers of Keisha Cole, India Arie, Alicia Keys, Kehlani, and Hello Yellow, just to name a few. He was executive producer of the independent movie Me and Mrs. Jones, Life Is, a documentary on the life of multi-platinum music rapper Too Short. He also had an acting part in the movie Get Money. He's also scored for TV and films and has served as executive producer of independent films. And also on board is someone who has been one of my favorites for decades now. She's an esteemed legend in music. She made an impact in the world of jazz in her early years with her band taking the stage out at the Monterey Jazz Festival. She's gone on to make an impact not only in jazz, but also in R&B and dance music with such unforgettable hits as Forget Me Not, Remind Me, many others. She's also scored for Robert Townsend Partners in Crime. She's been the music director for the Soul Train Music Awards and many other awards, which we'll be talking about as we get into this discussion. So first off, I want to thank you all for being a part of this night and welcome you to Afro Comic Con 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For each of you, when did you actually start to recognize the impact of music in film and television shows that you were watching?
Well, I'll start. You want to start, Kwame?
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
No.
I always paid attention to the music. I was always attracted to music. I started playing music so young, and I was like watching my household. The radio was always on because that's how back in the day. That's how people received all of their information about everything, not simply news, but also the music of the day. So that was on all the time. I've never been without television. So knowing the themes of those different shows was when I was a little kid, even before I could tell time. I knew what time it was because of the theme song that I may have heard of a show that I really liked. I could be in the kitchen and hear a theme of a show and know that it was time to watch a particular show. And I started paying attention more and more, and I figured out that I really liked all of the music that I was hearing, the different styles that were used. I decided very early that that's what I wanted to do, is to be a composer for film and TV specifically. But my path along the way of getting the knowledge and the understanding of what that was about kind of led into some other things, which, you know, you've alluded to and that we'll continue to talk about. But the idea of being a collaborator and scoring to action, visual action, was always very appealing to me, something I really wanted to do.
All right.
Wow.
Who's next?
I think for me,
thank you for that information.
Yeah, for me, I think when I was a kid, I was, like Patrice was saying, very attracted to the music of what was in my surroundings, and I watched a lot of TV. I watched a lot of cartoons. So cartoons like Bugs Bunny, those actual scoring, those lush scoring of Bugs Bunny, right. The scoring of Tom and Jerry, the scoring of Woody Woodpecker. Like, I would zone into that. Action cartoons like Battle of the Planets would zone into that music. And then being a little kid and say the coming of Star Wars. Star Wars came out. The first thing I did was run out and buy that soundtrack and just zone into, and I knew exactly who John Williams was at 5, 6 years old. I knew who that. I read the liner notes and I was into that. And then it was all things John Williams, Superman, Jaws. I was just trying to get those soundtracks. Mm-hmm. And this is as a little kid, and this is before hip hop for me. So it was always that music, those musical soundtracks. To this day, I would sit there as a kid and hum along, because I would memorize every one of those, the string arrangements, the horn arrangements, all those different arrangements as a kid, and just it'll flip me out. So that's how it started for me.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ian.
So for me, not trying to make everyone here feel old, but the soundtracks of my childhood was James Horner's The Land Before Time and An American Tail. But also, since I grew up in Taiwan, I love the Joe Hisaishi's music for the Ghibli studio, as well as Ryuichi Sakamoto, and people like Tandun. So for me, it's like a mix of different cultures. But I would say that I never thought I would be a composer growing up. I thought I would be a doctor, because I'm a nice Asian kid. But,
so what, you disappointed your parents?
Well, I try to let them down very carefully. I mean, I do a lot of music in college while I'm doing biology on the side, even though it's a little bit the other way around. Right. And when it comes time to choose where I spend my time after graduation, I just kind of ask my parents if if they approve of my decision, and they're like, yeah, give it a try if that's what you really want to do. And so here we are.
Hey, so Ian, so what's your I mean, I know Kwame and Patrice, I know you have an instrument all day. What's your instrument? What are you a musician?
Yeah, I started on the violin when I was like 5 or 6, and then I started doing percussions and piano. So I actually do quite a bit of different instruments, mostly orchestral music. I'm classically trained, but I also love just picking up music here and there. I spent 2 years in New York, so I have some jazz influence. I love going to jazz clubs, and I was there. I studied Chinese traditional instruments, so there's some influence from that as well.
When I used to hear like the music of the Mod Squad or F Troop or Bonanza, things like that. What got me, in addition to just hearing the music, was seeing how the music would dictate a scene, or maybe not dictate, but help drive a scene. Yep. For those of you who compose, for the composers here who've composed for film, and also Ian, you've composed for film and for games. How do you drive the scene? Like as you're composing, when you see the scene, how does the music come to mind for you?
It might be different for different people, but the job of the composer is really another sort of invisible character in the film. Mm-hmm. See, the film are little pictures edited together, but music is not that. Music is linear from one side to the other side. And so part of what in the collaborative effort of writing for scoring for film, true scoring for film, is that you are supposed to help the director keep the story moving and focus the attention and the emotions of the audience that's watching, to help to be part of that, because like I said, music is linear and it's subliminal sometimes as to how your emotions are triggered by a scene. You have to know the picture very well. You have to know the intention and the story very well. And then you get direction from the director as far as where music is going to actually go, where it's going to come in and come out. And then your job has to be, even though the music is not necessarily something that everybody's thinking about all the time, it is the subliminal driver of the entirety of the story, which is why sometimes the scene that makes you weep, ain't nobody saying nothing.
Right.
They don't have to, because at that moment, emotionally, you're invested in. If the music is doing its job, it's going to help push you over the edge of whatever it is that the director wants to evoke. So music becomes a very, very important character and characteristic of the storytelling, and the palette that you choose, whether it's an orchestral palette or a small group or electronics. The sonic palette that you decide to use is another very, very key factor. And that was one of the things that is so attractive, I think, for all of us in being into music, is that the landscape and the soundscape that you are in charge of in order to make the visuals work best is it's a challenge, and it's also it can be very rewarding.
Right.
I myself, man, Craig. So when you were, I started in this grassroots style, 100%. Of course, the music and the scores that inspired me was the '70s. Simply, coming up with the '60s music, one thing for sure, the orchestra type of stuff. But once I'm a guitarist, so when I heard what Mr. Mayfield did to the Superfly and all this, right. That's I always looked at, okay, so that the star always has to have a theme. So I'm old school with it. It started out right there, and I always wanted to get into scoring. We always did a lot of music, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 dropping songs for the soundtracks / score, whatever. But I never got a chance to have anyone hire me. So that's how I got into becoming executive producers for different movies. I had the finishing capital, and I put myself in that score. And so when I had the opportunity to do Everyday Black Man with Amari Hardwick and Tessa and all that, they were coming up, and so I just knew I wanted to have something that made Everyday Black Man feel like something Curtis Mayfield, what he did for Claudine or something, And that's how I got involved. And I just happened to do a lot of stuff with Claire Fisher, so I automatically was hearing the string arrangement and stuff. So and I had quite a bit of catalog. So I kind of like bought my way into it that way. And I have to say, Patrice, I was inspired by you, Mr. Stanley Clark, and everybody. So and now I'm at Ian. I have been messing around a little bit with the gaming industry.
Oh, really?
Some of these youngsters, right? Oh, yeah. Some of these youngsters here are into programming and the hackathons. I've been producing some of those. So I've really been learning from the next generation. Actually, this for the past 15 years or so. But the last 7, 8 years have been nothing but me using some of the Tony's music and groups that I produced with some of these games and trying to give these kids, letting them know there's another platform out there for your music, and that's been my thing.
Right. Well, Ian, as a person who's composed for film and games, is there a difference in the process for you? Is there a difference in composing for a film as opposed to composing for a game?
I would say to start, it's fundamentally pretty similar. in that you start by examining the story behind both the game and the film, because games have stories.
Right.
I mean, obviously. So you examine the stories and the characters, because to me, music is there's always a perspective in the music that you're writing to picture, to story. So you want to know what you're trying to say, or which feeling you're trying to emote from which character. And in that perspective, I think it's pretty similar, because fundamentally they're both trying to tell a story. I think the difference probably is that for games, there's different genres of games have different approaches as well. Like some games you don't have those moments where you're scoring specifically to an emotional arc, because it's hard to, like, you can't pick when the player is going to do something and have the music go there at the right time.
Right.
But I will have to say that recently there are developments that are trying to merge the two. I think most recently there's a game called Erica, scored by Alison Wintry, who did Journey, which is an amazing game from a few years ago. But for that one, they shot every scene on footage and stitched them together based on player choices. So in that sense, it's like a film, but the player get to choose what to do. So then there's like technology behind how you make the music work, even though you have to do it beforehand. And then so that's something that's happening recently, and I'm looking forward to where it's going to go in the future as well.
Cool. Tell us your path into scoring. Kwame, I mean, you, as I mentioned earlier, you were the boy genius. You were the cat who came out with the hits early on, and had built quite a following in hip hop. How did you? What was your path from there into scoring for film?
It was weird. I always wanted to do it, but it was, how it is in this business. Sometimes it's a 1 degree separation from somebody that you would never expect, and then you fall into something at times. So for me, I think what got me in, there was a HBO film called Dancing in September. Right. It was being directed by Reggie Rock Blythewood, and one of the ADs on the set overheard the director playing one of my records, just randomly. And he was like, "Yeah, that's my friend, blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Yeah, for real?" He said, "You think you want to give us a song for the movie?" And it happened like that. And he called me up, and then they told me the whole synopsis, and they sent me some dailies, and I composed just like 2 cues for that particular film. And that film got nominated for an Emmy, and I was like, okay, well, maybe this might be something I could do, because, and you know how with records in the industry, there's an ebb and flow, and sometimes you're popping, sometimes nothing's happening whatsoever. So that started happening on my low period, on my downtime, and nothing happened from there. And I started producing records, and things started to pick up. And then there's this record that I did for Tweet, Missy Elliott and Tweet, came out, called Turn the Lights Off. And a music supervisor happened to like that record. So he gave me a call, and they said, "We're working on this movie called Step Up. And, we kind of need some hip hop and some R&B and a little bit of orchestral type of scoring. Would you be interested in even just taking a crack at it?" And this is like the inception of the movie, so it wasn't really anything going on. So as they visited me in the studio, and I was working on stuff, they started to rewrite and rework Mario's character after the way I was being as a producer. So I kind of had like a real inside scoop on that movie. And then I started scoring from the ground up. And then it was almost the opposite, because the things that I was scoring, they were writing scenes too, instead of the opposite of me scoring to a scene already. There were things that I were coming up with, and they were doing like some of the dance montages and some of the scenes to that. And then that led to other things, to other things, to other things. So, you know, it was just, and even with video games, some of the video games that I've done, it's almost the same way. Like I would get the concept first and come up with like skeleton sketches of what I think should go on in this situation. Like I did an NBA 2K one time, and I'll tell you right now, I'm the least sports inclined person on the planet. But just imagining how these players would play, I was just coming up with different rhythms and different things like that, and then they would program to that, and those things made the game. So sometimes you can flip it in different ways. So that was my way of getting in.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the NBA 2K because, you know, there was a point where it seemed like in the video games, you would have all of this, you know, jumping, happening music that you weren't having at the actual basketball games. And I guess maybe somebody connected with the basketball league or something started paying attention, because now you have these arenas where you have DJs who are featured, you know, and are driving things the same way that they were driving on video games. Patrice, now you have a very interesting story. I know that, or I remember reading that I think Robert Townsend's Partners in Crime was
actually
the
it was
first.
before that.
Was it before that? Oh, well, tell us how your road, your path into story.
You know, similar to what Kwame is saying, and this is for all of you, the composers out there, you don't know how it's going to happen. When you're involved in music, and all of us are usually multidimensional in the music that we like, and that's one thing that most composers have in common, and so many artists are listening to so many different things that you're influenced by a lot of stuff. I had just signed with I wanted to do film scoring. I had hit records, you know, I had won, you know, Grammy nominations and all this kind of thing. But remember, I said that what I was actually wanting to do was to score for film and TV, but I didn't know the path. Mm-hmm. So I went to school and the whole 9 yards as doing everything but, it seemed, composing in that way. I was a music education major, a classical piano minor, because that's what they had in school.
Right.
So, yeah. But there's no wasted energy or time. And because I had done these records, when I did finally go and get a film agent, at that time, Robert Townsend was doing Hollywood. He had finished Hollywood Shuffle.
Oh, right.
The first film. And he was looking for somebody to score it. Now, you remember that, similar to Kwame, in your case, the music is all over the place. You got stuff sound like Superfly 1 minute and James Brown, and then the next minute John Williams. So he needed music and a composer who had that range. And when he would go to these different agencies and look at all of the names of the people, he didn't recognize anybody's name, because we weren't necessarily used to looking at who the composers were doing these pictures. I had just been signed to this label. My name was at the bottom in pencil, but he recognized my name from he was a fan of Forget Me Nots and the other things that I had done. So I was the name he recognized. So he said, get her. And to my agent's chagrin, you know, they said, okay. So I did the music for Hollywood Shuffle. And again, like I said, it served as a perfect sampling of all the range that I could write for, because the movie demanded all of these different kinds of musics in the score. And and that's
my movie.
From that movie, he got 5 HBO comedy specials.
Right.
And he asked me to music direct those 5 specials. And so now I'm thrust into a music direction format, which also needs somebody to score the little vignettes, like The Bold, the Black, and the Beautiful. And then play for all the guests, who would range from Diane Reeves to Bobby Brown, and have a band and the whole thing. And then after that, I got the Image Awards, which I did, the NAACP Image Awards, as music director again. And I did that for like 12 or 13 years. From that, the Emmys. From that, the Grammys. So there was no wasted energy or time in doing all of those different activities that I had done as an artist, as a producer, even as a student, in learning certain kinds of things that just kept adding to my tool chest. They just didn't all happen at the same time. And since you don't know from where it's coming, if you really love the music, do yourself a favor and just stay with it, stay in it, be about it, learn all you can about the different aspects of it. And when that opportunity does come, sometimes it opens up the floodgates.
And it also sounds
Can I
like
ask
you should have some versatility as well. I mean,
It's
be
helpful.
open to other things.
It's helpful,
Yes.
very helpful.
Yeah. Dwayne, you mentioned the way you got into it, like with Me and Mrs. Jones and Ordinary Black
Yeah.
Man.
Yes.
Becoming executive producer and then getting into scoring.
Right.
Tell us about that path. And had you gone knocking on the doors before, like to try and get hired for scoring another way?
I was knocking on doors, and not a lot, you know what I mean? Because that's just the way I think. I looked at the opportunity to work with when I did Me and Mrs. Jones. First of all, that was the first one, and
Right.
that one was shot in film, so I was really learning a lot about how that all worked, because that was shot in film in San Francisco and all that. So when I came in executive, I had to look at having it transformed over into digital and all that. That's when that was coming off. Because this was 1999, 2000, and then at that time I had a music score of Beyonce on the track, Alicia Keys, Keisha Cole, and a couple other things I was working with. And so I just had all these tracks, and that was before all of the people were signed.
Right.
And so when I went in to do the film festivals with the producer, he had the movie. He was from New York. He had the movie pretty much set, and I came in with finishing dollars. And I put myself in the scoring position. And that's when Brian White, of course, Kim Phil, she was, known. And that's when we had Blockbuster and everything. So I just, I look back on some of the movies when you said, Robert Townsend's movie Hollywood Shuffle. That I just now I have to go back and rewatch it all over again and tell my brother too, like, no wonder that sucked. That's all in. It was, because you have some crazy music moving through that flick. So when I got a chance to do that, I just thought about I wanted to attach artists I was dealing with to that, and it worked for me because I was already dealing with orchestras, and I had already come up in that atmosphere of listening to people score like Bobby Womack and all of that across 110th Street action stuff. So
Right.
I started out with the soul thing, and then just everything else just I started incorporating things I've done with orchestras with it. So it kind of worked for me organically, and I bumped my head a lot, but I loved it. I like doing the film festivals because, of course, the director wanted to show what he directed, such. I was giving after parties for all the film festivals, and making all the directors and the record company people come to my room, and so I've always looked at it from how to make everything work around the same. The music, the visuals, tours, everything. But that was my way of walking into the game.
Cool. There was a time where you would have the score and then you would have the soundtrack, but increasingly they're being combined to where you have the original score with some tracks thrown on from the soundtrack. Now, excuse me, if you're scoring a film, but if you're scoring a film for each of you, if you're scoring something, how involved are you in the selection of the other music, the sound that goes onto the soundtrack?
Me.
Well, in my case, I think it's always that's when the politics come in, the record label politics come in, because you're working on the film side and you're working with the film company, but then they may have a deal with Atlantic Records, and and you'll do your whole score, and the next thing you know, Atlantic Records turns in a whole album full of their artists, and none of the songs have anything to do with the movie at all. And that's that might be the soundtrack, and you may have the opportunity, like I've had in the past, of designing maybe 1 to 3 songs that are actually tailor-made for the movie, but the rest of the album is just like filler cuts of whoever label that they did the deal with to put out the soundtrack. That's been my experience.
Okay. Anyone else want to chop in?
I've had it different ways. You know, it's and I think some of it has to do with what the perception of you as a writer are. If you're a songwriter or you're known to be that or known to be a producer, sometimes they will come at you with some indication that they respect that part of who you are and maybe want some of your input. And sometimes they don't want it at all. Sometimes they don't think about it. People sometimes in the film world tend to be pretty myopic in terms of the way they see stuff. They don't necessarily get that as artists and as musicians, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do a whole bunch of things over here and over there, and that our careers as artists, particularly now, is based upon being able to have skills, plural, to be able to do many different kinds of things. The way we compose depends on it, which is why, you know, Ian could tell you about all the different kinds of things that he's done as a musician, which informs how he's able to work in the games. And now technology informs a lot of the ways that we do stuff. So I think a lot of it has to do with project to project, who's involved in the selection of the composer and who the music supervisors are. And as we educate ourselves more and more, from the directors to the producers to exec producers and musicians, on what each other's roles are, we become more of an ally to the other person when they get that you understand how whatever they do fits. So it's asking a lot of us, but as musicians, we're accustomed to that.
I'll tell you one thing I learned in this is about being organized. It's matter of factual. When you get ready to deliver something, movie-wise, whatever, coming from the executive side and score, I look at that because when I mentioned those names, it really dawned on me that I was doing all those things to promote the movie, and I got the deal. But when I got the deal for distribution for it, I could do all of the film festivals. I didn't get any clearances from none of those big artists because they finally ain't got a record deal. And I still, you know, by 2001 or 2002 when I got the deal, you know what I'm saying, it was different. Alicia Keys was different. Only person I could keep was it. So what I've learned is, hey, my man, get your paperwork together off top in the beginning. So when I came in ass backwards, I learned a lot. But there's no regrets. You know what I mean? I really appreciate that experience.
You know, Patrice, you mentioned the technology now and how technology has changed. For each of you, Ian, starting with you, how does technology feed or dictate how you work now? Excuse me, how you compose?
I don't want to say everything, but it's a lot more than what I expected when I got into composing. I mean, when I decided I wanted to be a composer, I thought it was going to be like John Williams, where you just, you know, write a score and then hand it off to orchestrator or, you know, people that will like record it for you and get it to sound the way you want. But that is definitely not the case nowadays. You kind of have to, well, first of all, the score sounds very different now. The score is more of a hybrid orchestral and hyper-produced sound, which is technology, which involves a lot of technology to begin with. But also, composers kind of just be expected to be involved in everything in the production cycle of the score. So you have to not just, you have to do everything. You have to know every role to a degree. And when I first started, you also have to, you know, you have your sample machine, which hosts all the sounds that you're going to use. And then you have to know how to connect that to your DAW, your DAW, and all the sort of details, which I didn't know I needed to learn, but it just kind of happens once you get into industry and you learn from other composers as well. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's technology is important. So if you're illiterate in technology, then this may not be the path for you, at least right now. Maybe in the future it'll be different.
Hey, Ian, what was the unit that you used to have all of your sounds for when you were scoring? What was that called?
The DAW, the Digital Audio Workstation. Is that what you mean?
Yes. What was? Yes.
I use Nuendo and Pro Tools.
Oh, okay. You know what I was thinking of? Kwame, I was thinking, I'm trying to remember that machine that everybody used, and you were in it was like about 300 dang songs you could have loaded on that bad boy, and then rappers start using them on
Oh, you
stage.
talking about
What's that called, man? Come on,
like the SP, the MPC,
not the
the
MPC,
MPC
no, not
60,
even MPC. It's gonna
or
come
the
to me.
SP 1200,
Older
or
than
the
that,
emulator,
older
What
than
is
that,
that?
like
emulator.
the Akai 3000.
Yeah,
What's
or the
oh man, I'm kind of it's
EM,
gonna
the
come to me. I
emulator,
think.
or the
I
remember the
don't even know. No,
emulator,
it's
the
not that
emulator
far back.
keyboard. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
hell yeah, I remember that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
the Nico, or the
Nah,
Miko,
what's it called?
the.
A one spot or one
Oh
what's
no, I
that?
know what you're talking about. That is it's that white machine that has all the little
Yep.
buttons, and
Yep.
you can,
Yep.
and it would hold, each button could hold,
Yep.
say, like a whole show,
A
and
whole
you
damn
could
show. Yeah.
instant playback or instant replay,
Instant
instant
playback.
replay.
Instant
Yeah,
replay. Boom.
instant
That's what it
replay.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I remember man, rappers of 40 had his whole show and everybody had
Yeah, it's
you
like
know
a
what I
little
mean?
box. Yeah, that
Oh
was
yeah.
incredible.
It's a trip, and that started with the film stuff. When you said that, I mean, like that's old school to you too, Ian. That's hella old
Yeah.
school to you. Because you went straight. I shouldn't even brought that up.
Yeah.
I use that like, oh.
Ian, welcome to the
But
world of analog.
I would say this though, that scoring has always involved the technology that was available in that day.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
People who
Oh, yeah.
people who scored films used to have to load the film into the Motorola, into the thing, and actually watch the film while they were writing. They had to learn how to do that, how the film was cut with spokes, when they used to use film. When you look at those machines, you say, well, wow, it has evolved obviously to the point that, then they used to send you the films on a beta, and then they used
Is
to
that what
send
they
you
was
the
doing?
film.
The
Then they
editing with
still
the razor blade?
yeah, remember? Then they would send you the films on DVDs.
Whoa.
Now they'll send you the films over email, and you
Right,
get the
right.
film, and then you have to deal with it, and everything is very quick. Here's the one thing that hasn't changed though, and won't. The creative energy that it takes for you to come up with the music, technology will not do for you. It won't do it. You can put some stuff together, but the best scores and the most convincing in whatever medium the music is involved has to always take into consideration the human element that is going to be reacting to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And a machine, and as amazing as the technology is in order to make things good and precise, does not have that yet. So you're absolutely right, Ian. We're expected to take into consideration all the technology and what it allows us to be able to manipulate in terms of frequencies of sound and everything. The thing that the industry has done is use that technology to demand speed. And what that means is that they want to hear everything you're going to do in a mock-up because they can.
Yeah.
And so it makes you do twice the work. You do it once for that, and then you think you're going to be able to go back and tweak it and make it just so. And the technology, because they can receive it so fast, they think that that's the way we write, that we write that fast, that we conceive that fast. And it was a time when it was expected that you'd have to do that with everything. Films were the longer form because you might have a few months, maybe a year, maybe longer. Television, we got to have it next week. Video games, probably faster than that. The only thing that slows that down is the animation that has to go into the game. So the technology has worked on both sides of this. It has really made composers have to really make up their minds and stand up as composers to doing something and quick and effective. But it has also taken away the time to gestate the story to find just the right thing because they can get it so fast. Double-edged sword that we play with all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's another duality that I deal with, or I think a lot of people deal with. One, people expect you to be dictated by whatever the new technology is, and a lot of times, especially newer composers, feel that they have to keep up with the Joneses by getting this new machine or that new machine just to do that. So I think sometimes that can also destroy your workflow. If there are things that you're used to using, you shouldn't have to feel the pressure to get this new technology, because it's going to just slow you down, because now you're trying to learn this new thing and you're also trying to create and you're also trying to deliver. But then the flip side to that is, I think that no matter how old you are or how long you do what you're doing, you should always be on the curve of what's going to be, I guess, the most user friendly. So say, for example, if everybody, I'm just throwing something out, if everybody uses Final Cut, right? And you're sitting there and you don't have Final Cut, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball. You know, there's certain things that you should understand what's going to be across the board. And then also certain things you should understand what's going to be a fad and just what's cool for right now, and learn how to circumvent that and skip that and keep your productivity moving as fast as possible.
Well, how do you know the difference, like between what's necessary for now and what's just a fad for now?
I don't think that you always have to know the difference, because the deliverable is the music.
It's the bottom line, right?
Nobody is standing around asking you, so what did you use? And if you didn't use that, I don't want it. If the music is working and the tools that you have allow for the music to work and be sonically compatible, be synced correctly, hit the marks that it's supposed to hit, and evoke the certain emotions that you're asked to do in your score, then it doesn't really matter what you used to do it. Your criteria ultimately has to be the deliverable and its effect on the entirety of the project.
And Ian, you were about to say something?
I was just going to say exactly that. I was going to say that you want the technology to work for you to make the sound that you want to make, instead of the other way around, where if you're trying to catch up to, like, some other sound, then you're going to lose yourself. You're going to lose what makes you special, So, I mean, of course, like, I try new stuff every once in a while to broaden my sound, and sometimes I see something cool and I just wanted to try it. Maybe I'll incorporate it into my sound, but you should never be chasing something that is going to hinder your creativity.
I understand, like when Patrice was saying, understanding the core of the project, what the director or producer is trying to say, or the movie itself. But I love the fact that all these different platforms that there is right now. Like, I am a very analog dude in a digital world, so I'm catching up, and but I respect the people that can understand how all the things work with the mouse and the whole bit. I just can't do it. You know what I mean? But I had the opportunity to do something to score a book. Now, audiobook. Now, that was different. That was different, because I really, I read the book and the whole bit. It's Alicia Garza. It's coming out. Not to be trying to drop it on the realness of it. The sisters that started Black Lives Matter. 3 of them: Opal, and Patrice, and Alicia. In this case, Alicia Garza has done a book called Purpose of Power. And whoa. When I read it, I was coming at it one way until I read that book. I switched gears and downshift, and you don't want to overshadow what the book is about or the person speaking, but you want to make sure that you keep the attention and somewhat suspense of the next chapter, and that's what I learned. And that was my first one, and but I'm just saying, I'm just blown away. Look at all these fly ass platforms out here for our music to go, and I feel I say this to you, Patrice, because you blessed my sons so dope you wouldn't understand. They were in the Berkeley School of Music,
the Young Musicians program,
and the whole yes. And I went to a master's class, and my sons, I was goofing all day at that master's class. You played this grand piano and the whole bit, and they had this one piece they all had to learn, and you laid some game on them so much. And I told them so much about you. And to this day, right now, he was able to do some of the music with Solange, got a Grammy for the Cranes in the Sky stuff. But I'm letting you know, you don't understand. You're still doing it, still sprinkling the next generation. And that's magic. That is
Right.
magic, man. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, people did
And
it for
Jugu
me.
Chancellor, the whole bit. He was the only one that could get in Denzel's ass. Hey, Greg, I mean, I'm telling you, man, Denzel was a thug there, but Jugu told that boy something one day. And I looked, I was like, that's what he needed to hear. Man, I mean, you know what I mean? So what you guys do and what you've done, and I mean, everybody on this panel, I'm inspired. Damn, I mean, because Kwame, you know, we know each other. Boy, the roles and to see what you're into now and you're doing it, you still look the damn same, man. It's amazing. And then young brother Ian, and then just thank you guys. God is dope.
Well, why don't we take a moment right now to let everybody know what each of you are doing, what each of you are working on currently, or what you would like folks to know that you've done in the past. Kwame, what do you have going on right now?
Currently, I have I'm working with R&B artist Vivian Green. She's on my label Make Noise, which is distributed through Capitol Records, and we just completed her 7th album. This is the 3rd album that I co-wrote and produced with her, and that comes out November 13th. So I'm just like, it was a 2-year project, and I'm on creative break for a couple of seconds because I'm gearing up to just see how you promote an album in the COVID world. And so that's my new thing coming up.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Ian, what are you working on these days?
I have a couple indie films and indie games that I'm working on. Also, most recently, I finished another Netflix show and Taiwan collaboration show. So it's shot in Taiwan, and it's going to be on Netflix when it comes out. Unfortunately, I can't tell you what it is because it's not announced yet.
Okay.
I can say it's a sci-fi thriller, kind of Black Mirror-ish. It's pretty cool. So, you know, when it comes out, I'll let you know.
Cool.
Good work, man.
Patrice, what are you working on these days?
Well, as usual, it's a mixed bag of tricks. I'm at USC as the chair of the popular music program, which keeps us very, very busy with those who are right behind us, who are up and coming and trying to develop their careers, keeping that curriculum going. I'm also, a lot of my symphonic music is surfacing, where people are finding it now and want to perform it with orchestras all over the country now that are interested in what it is that's happening, because for a lot of times Black composers have not been part of those programs. And of course, now with so much awakening of consciousness about our existence, there is a need and there is a desire to explore some of that music. So I'm happy about that, getting some of those pieces out there that are sitting waiting to be played. And then just recently, we've started looking for ways to be able to play music again in real time with each other, socially distanced and masked, of course. But I just finished doing something with Marcus Miller, where he's doing a Saturday night thing.
I just saw that.
Did you see that? So we're going to be doing about 5 of them before they take a break and take an assessment as to whether or not it really catches on. It's been so much fun just to play with people, and even given these tough times, the music is healing, and it doesn't matter on what side of it you're on. If you're the one playing it or if you're the one listening to it, the experience of music is meant to be just that, an experience. We get to do it, for our collaborative projects with film and TV and video games, but there's still nothing like playing live. Nothing.
Yeah. I know Dwayne, before this whole shutdown, you've been traveling back and forth to Africa, setting up foundation there. But what are you working on while you're here? What's going on now?
Well, speaking of that, I've been going back and forth to Ghana, and I went right before they had the big year of return situation, and I picked up another movie situation with the first person I produced with, Ed Laborde, and this movie is called Timeless. It's filmed in Virgin Islands, and it's filmed in by the Elmina Castle, and it's about human trafficking. So I had the opportunity to score that, and that's the project we're working on right now, and closing that out, and hopefully we put that one through Netflix. So there's a few other things I want to go to the table with, but that's what I'm working on extremely right there, and that's something I can do on small stages where acoustically playing this movie with the story and, you know, take you through some of my insight on it, where, you know, pimping was a certain thing, and you look at it, it's sort of the same thing. But anyway, that's what I'm working on there, man. And it's exciting because there's some artists from over there in Accra that I had the opportunity to work with, and they're taking some beats and some rhythms that we had and just re-freak them a whole nother way. And I'm excited. I love the vibe, the artists. So between there and California and a little bit of Atlanta, that's me for right now.
You know,
Working on that project.
each of you are at a point in your careers now where you are also the influence for others. But tell me, who are some of the composers or scorers of music for film or TV these days that you're listening to? Who do you admire today?
I've been looking at series, man, for the real, because of this COVID stuff, and I wasn't a big television watcher, you know what I mean? But I had to get some things popping. So I started watching, you know, all of these series. I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? I heard my brother on a few of them, and I was like unaware of all of this going on. So I've really just been looking at the series opportunities. But you know me, I'm the independent entrepreneur. I'm like, I wanted to shoot a series that goes from Ghana to Atlanta to Oakland and make that. So I can't say I really isolated and just focus on any one person that scores. I just been listening to the different styles of things happening right before our eyes right now. The game has extremely changed.
Right, picking up influence from it all. Huh?
Oh yeah, all the way around.
Yeah.
Man. I'm looking at what the young brother did for what's his name what Swiss Beats. I want to say it was something with New York. You know, for some reason I like gangster movies. That's just he was real creative with that, man. You know, with using the beats, and then it's an old school classic movie, like, you know, taken in the 70s or something like that, but he's using new beats, and it has a great feel to it. I'm like, how you fuse that and make it work? It's fly. You know what I mean? So, my ears are open and my ears are to the street.
Well, who's the rest of you? Who has your attention these days?
I don't know if anybody, well, I wish I can rattle off names of newer composers, but like, I still go back. There are certain composers and certain compositions that I always refer to, even though they may be considered vintage or older. Like, for example, I love with Terrence Blanchard. When Terrence Blanchard and Spike Lee get together, those me being from New York, me hanging out and being from those areas that Spike portrays most of his films on, that those lush scoring always take me back home. They always, and I just love them. I love them, and I just want to hear more and more and more. So stuff like that. What Dwayne was saying, Claire Fisher, I absolutely 1000% love the scoring of Claire Fisher. You know, anything that I've heard him do, and then I had to go backwards, you know, because I think my introduction to Claire was Prince, and then I think the last time I saw you, we had a show together, and I asked you who did the strings on Anniversary. He was like, man, that was Claire Fisher. I was like, I knew it. and then
that song ended up being 9 minutes long. We took
4
minutes longer, and then we said, hey, let the strings go and just
and then I went I went backwards and started checking out his jazz work and his jazz piano work and going backwards like that. And like I said, of course, John Williams, and then of course, looking just different things like that, you know, and there's things that I don't even know. Like, say, for example, I love Godzilla movies. Okay, I don't know who. No, seriously, I don't know who has scored any of those movies. But when I hear the bam, 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 I'm like, yeah. I'm listening.
And Godzilla's in the house.
No,
right?
when I start hearing that, and I hear them playing with those ARC 2600s and those Moogs and doing the different pom 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 pom. I'm like, oh my god, y'all freaks me out. I was watching Godzilla all night last night, and my lady was just like, "Well, you turn that stuff off."
Yeah, you hear that and you know somebody's neighborhood is getting wrecked.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like even going to what Ian was saying with some of the like the Chinese instruments and the Chinese influences. Like I like to watch a lot of either if it's even like the Shaw Brother movies, like those Shaw Brother scoring is like incredible to me. Or even like in Japan, like the Japanese anime scoring, like the original, like from the 60s and the 70s. To this day, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So some of the scoring, some of those composers, yeah, man, some of those composers go unnamed for me, but it's to this second my biggest influence. I always draw from things that are before my time because I don't want to ever act like I'm too old to know anything and I'm too young to not know anything. So I try to draw from all things that came before me at all times. And you know, that's just like my super influence.
Right on.
Right. I agree. I mean, there's always a bunch of people you listen to that sometimes you don't know the name of, but I mean, as composers, we're always listening for new things and new sounds, and always are influenced by interesting things that are coming out. I think for me, I would just say that since COVID happened, I've been playing a lot of games, PS4 games, and I really love Gustavo Santaolalla. He did the score for The Last of Us on the PS4, and also recently The Last of Us 2. I think he's an Argentinian composer so he uses a lot of ethnic sounding instruments that I find super emotionally attached to it, even though I'm not from that region. So he also did Brokeback Mountain, although I think I only used his music instead of the other way around where the film started and then he did. I'm not really sure, but I just know that his music is amazing. So if you don't know him, you should check him out.
Cool, man.
Hey,
I think what comes out of this is that everybody knows that as composers, it's about vocabulary.
Right.
And the more you listen and the more you absorb different kinds of music, at least the essence of the music, even if it's something you don't like, you also have to take in why you don't like it, because you might have to write something like that. So the idea is taking in the vocabulary of all this stuff. Hopefully most of the things are of interest and you do like them and you do find them useful. But that's who composers are. We're chameleons.
Right.
We take in a lot of information and then use it to inform our stamp on a particular project.
Hey, well, this has been a very fun and informative panel. Before I let you all go, though, for folks who want to keep up with what each of you have going on, how can they do so? Where can you, if you have a website, a link or something, where can folks find you at?
www.patricerushen.com.
That's easy.
I'm Dwayne. Hey, you know what? Actually, Dwayne.Wiggins@gmail. That's the email. But besides that, Dwayne Wiggins Official. That's my IG and also on my my Facebook situation. I'm simple.
Right.
Easy.
Cool. Ian, how can folks keep up with you, man?
My website is ianchenmusic.com, and on my social medias, I'll just Ian Chen Music, so it should be easy.
Okay. And Kwame, how can we keep up with you, brother?
Since I'm addicted to like Instagram, just reach me there, Kwame Vision at Instagram. I do check DMs, and that's where I'm at. Kwame.
You also
Vision.
have something going on live. You do something on Instagram Live weekly, right?
Yes. So every Saturday, based on this is based on this whole COVID situation. So every Saturday morning, I do this thing called Saturday Morning Tunes, and I spin classic hip hop, and also if I go over my 3 or 4 hours, I go into classic R&B as well, and I interlace those tracks with classic cartoon themes and classic cartoon montages, and I just blend them all together, and I try to give that experience of when we were a kid, I start here in LA 8 in the morning and I go to 12 because that's how it was when I was a kid. Cartoon started on Saturday at 7:30, 8 in the morning, and at 12, Soul Train came on.
Soul Train, that's
You
right.
already know.
And soon as 12 o'clock hits, I put on that Soul Train theme and I just go into the Soul Train tunes and I play classic 70s, 80s commercials intertwined with the classic records. So it's just, I think it's a way to give people a constant, because in this COVID situation, things are very uneasy. People don't know what's happening. People are getting stir crazy. So it's just my little contribution of giving somebody a constant thing to look forward to every Saturday, whether I'm here in my studio or if I'm traveling abroad. Like clockwork, I will broadcast every Saturday. I've been in many different states over the last couple of weeks, and I'll still do the broadcast. So that's my Saturday hobby, being a DJ.
On, man.
Hey, well, I'll have a big bowl of cereal with you on Saturday morning, man.
Yeah, man, come on through.
I'm gonna start tuning in, bro.
Yeah, man, please do. We have a great time. We have a great time, and it's like a community of people. People start cracking jokes and talking. It's more than just playing the music. It's just a community of people that get together and have a classic time.
Sounds amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I want to thank each of you for taking time out to spend time with us. I know the folks of Afro Comic Con are really, really, really going to dig this. So thank you very much. Thank you, Ian Chen. Thank you, Patrice Rushen. Thank you, Kwame. And thank you, Dwayne Wiggins, for sharing time with us here at Afro Comic Con Virtual 2020. And again, want to remind folks to please consider donating to the AFCC Moonshot Junior program that funds young girls of color to go through a 12-month program where they will learn tech skills, innovation, product development, and entrepreneurship. Please click the donation link. Any amount will help, and more information will be found on the website. Again, thank you all. This is Greg Bridges with Afro Comic Con. I want to give a big thanks to our producer, Norman Rich. Thank you, and thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ian, Greg, Patrice, Kwame. Love y'all.
Thank you.
Love, brother.
All right, bye.
Bye.
And vote.